Your Social Security is protected by federal law. A debt collector cannot take it. A lawsuit cannot touch it. A judgment cannot reach it. That is true. That is written into federal law. And it stops being true the moment your check lands in your bank account and mixes with other money. That is not a loophole somebody found. That is how the protection is built. Your Social Security is shielded while it can still be identified as Social Security. Once it blends into everything else in your checking account, the shield gets very hard to prove. And a debt collector with a judgment does not knock on your door. They serve your bank. The bank freezes what is in the account, and you find out when your card is declined at the pharmacy counter. Nothing about you has to change for this to happen. You did not miss a payment that month. You did not sign anything. Nobody called you. An old medical bill, a credit card from a decade ago, a debt you thought was long dead, is all it takes. Now stay with me, because here is the part almost nobody knows. Your bank is required to look at your account before it hands anything over. There is an automatic protection built into federal rules that is supposed to keep a portion of your money out of reach, without you filing a single thing. And it works, when it works. And there is one specific mistake that switches it off. Before this video ends, you will know exactly what that mistake is. My name is Kevin. I read the rules so you do not have to. If you are new here, this channel exists for one reason. We read the fine print that decides what happens to your money, so you find out before the system decides for you. Subscribe and turn on the bell, because this one is sitting inside almost every senior checking account in this country. Let me start with why the protection exists at all, because it explains everything that follows. Congress decided a long time ago that Social Security is not ordinary money. It is not a paycheck. It is not savings. It is the last thing standing between an older American and the street. Verified card. Source: Social Security Act, Section 207, Protection from Legal Process. So they made it exempt. A private creditor cannot garnish it. A judgment cannot attach to it. But here is the gap that sat in that law for decades. The protection follows the money, not the person, which means the government could protect that check all the way from Washington to your mailbox, and then lose track of it the second it touched your bank. Because a bank does not see a Social Security check when it looks at your account, it sees a balance, one number. And when a court order arrives demanding that number, the bank is looking at a pile of money with no labels on it. Let me tell you about Odell. Odell is 73. He lives in Sapulpa, Oklahoma. He spent his working life on a road crew, 31 years of asphalt and August heat. 12 years ago, Odell had a bad stretch. A hospital stay, a surgery, and a bill he could never realistically pay. He heard from a collector for a while, then the letters stopped. He assumed it was over. Most people do. It was not over. Somewhere in a courthouse, that debt turned into a judgment, and a judgment does not expire quietly. One Tuesday, Odell's debit card was declined at the grocery store. He had money. He knew he had money. His check had come in 5 days earlier. He drove to his bank and was told his account had been restrained. There was a court order. He could not access his own funds. Nobody had called him. Nobody had warned him. He found out standing in a checkout line with a cart of groceries and a card that would not work. And think about what a frozen account actually does to a week. It is not one inconvenience. It is every automatic payment at once. The mortgage draft fails, the insurance premium bounces, the pharmacy will not fill the prescription, and every one of those failures adds its own fee on top. By the time the money is released, the freeze has cost real money that nobody ever gives back. Now this got bad enough, often enough, that the federal government stepped in. There is a rule now that requires your bank to do something before it freezes everything. Verified card. Source: Treasury and federal banking regulators. Garnishment rule for accounts receiving federal benefits. When a garnishment order arrives, the bank has to look back at your recent deposits. If it finds federal benefit payments arriving electronically, it must protect an amount equal to what came in over that recent stretch, automatically. You do not file anything. You do not hire anyone. The bank has to leave that money accessible to you. That is a genuinely good rule. It has saved a lot of people from an empty account. And it has one enormous blind spot. It only recognizes the money it can see arriving electronically as a federal benefit, direct deposit, clearly labeled, arriving straight from the government. And it only looks back over a limited recent stretch of deposits, not a year, not your whole history, which means the protection is built around a narrow window, and a clear label. Miss either one, and it simply does not fire. So if that check comes in as paper, and you cash it, and you deposit the cash, the bank sees a cash deposit, not a benefit, just cash, indistinguishable from any other money on earth. The automatic protection does not trigger, and now the burden is entirely on you to prove, after the fact, in a courthouse, where every dollar came from. That is the mistake I promised you. That is the whole thing. Not fraud, not a mispayment, just money that arrived without a label on it. And this is exactly why I built the thing I am about to tell you about, because Odell was protected the entire time. The law was on his side from the beginning. He simply had no idea that the protection depended on how the money walked into his account, and that once it was frozen, there was a specific claim to file and a specific window to file it in. Nobody hands you that at the counter. The rules governing your own money are written in a language designed to make you stop asking. That is what the Quiet Rules is. It is the drawer version of everything I cover on this channel. Written large, written simple. So the person sitting at the kitchen table with a court notice in their hand knows what to do on the first day, not 3 weeks later. The paper remembers for you. That is the entire point of paper. You can find it at kevinexplains.shop. The link is right below this video, or scan the QR code on your screen right now. It is also in the pinned comment at the top, and there is a 7-day guarantee, always. If it does not hand you something you did not have before, you send it back. Because the alternative is another good man standing in a checkout line, holding a card that will not work, with no idea that the law was on his side the whole time. If nobody has ever told you that your protected benefit can be frozen in your own account, do me one favor, subscribe and turn on the bell, because this channel reads the fine print that nobody mails to your house. Now let me show you the second way this goes wrong, and this one is quieter and far more common: commingling. That word simply means mixing. If your Social Security lands in the same account as anything else, a small pension, a part-time paycheck, a tax refund, money your daughter sent you for the water heater, then the money in that account is mixed, and now nothing in there is clearly labeled anymore. You know which dollars came from where. Your bank does not. A judge looking at a statement does not. Here is why that matters so much. Even when the automatic protection kicks in, it only shields what it can identify. Everything above that line is fair game, and if you have to go to court to protect the rest, the burden of proof is on you. You have to trace it, statement by statement, deposit by deposit, showing which dollars were exempt and which were not. Verified card. Source. Exempt funds must be traceable to claim protection. Confirm state procedure before relying on it. Let me tell you about Winnie. Winnie is 69. She lives in Chillicothe, Missouri. She taught 3rd grade for 26 years. She has her Social Security, a small teacher's pension, and she watches her neighbor's kids 2 afternoons a week for a little cash. All of it goes into one checking account, same as almost everyone. An old debt from a business her late husband ran caught up with her, a judgment she did not know existed. When the order hit her bank, a portion of her money was automatically protected. The rule worked. But her pension and her babysitting money were not federal benefits. Those were exposed, and they were sitting in the same account. Winnie spent 5 weeks trying to prove which dollars were which. She sat at her kitchen table with a year of bank statements and a highlighter, doing work a lawyer would charge thousands for. She got most of it back. Most. And here's what I need you to sit with, because it is the whole point. Winnie never owed that money. It was not her debt. She won. And winning still cost her 5 weeks, a stack of statements, and every quiet night's sleep she had in that stretch. Now let me tell you about Clyde, because he shows the other side of it. Clyde is 77. He lives outside Cairo, Illinois. Clyde got the same kind of notice Winnie did. His resolved in 9 days. The difference was not luck. It was not a better bank or a kinder judge. Clyde kept his Social Security in one account and nothing else. Only the direct deposit went in. Nothing else touched it. So when the order arrived, there was nothing to untangle. One account, one source, obvious on its face. Same law, same kind of debt. 5 weeks versus 9 days. Think about what that difference is worth. Not in a courtroom, at the kitchen table. In a stretch of weeks where you either can or cannot pay for groceries. That gap was not created by money or a lawyer. It was created by knowing one thing in advance. And that is exactly what the Quiet Rules holds. Which accounts to keep separate and why. What to have on file before a notice ever arrives. The claim to file if one does. The window you have to file it in. The exact words that get it taken seriously the first time instead of the third. For this, and for every rule in this video, sitting in the drawer, in plain English, before the notice comes, not after. You can find it at kevinexplains.shop. The link is in the description and in the pinned comment at the top, or scan the QR code on your screen right now. 7-day guarantee, no questions asked, because the alternative is Winnie's kitchen table. A year of statements, a highlighter, and 5 weeks of a woman proving that money she never owed was hers all along. Now, I want to be honest with you about the limits of this protection, because half a truth here is worse than none. Not every debt is stopped by that shield. There are some debts the federal government collects from your check regardless. Federal taxes you owe, federal student loans in default, child support and alimony. Verified card, source, Social Security Act, Section 207, exceptions for federal debts and family support. Those are carved out by law. Different rules, different agencies, different limits. Death, what this video is about is the other kind, the private kind, credit cards, medical debt, an old car loan, a store card, a lawsuit from a fender bender. And there is one more thing about private debt that catches people completely off guard. A judgment does not quietly die of old age the way most people assume. You can go years without hearing a word and be certain it is over. In many states, that judgment can be renewed and kept alive far longer than anyone expects. Verified card, source, judgment lifespan and renewal varies by state. Confirm your state's period. So the silence is not proof that it ended. Very often the silence is just the waiting. Those creditors have no right to your Social Security. None. And those are exactly the ones who end up freezing accounts anyway. Because the protection is real, but it is not automatic once the money is mixed. Now let me show you the thing that makes all of this manageable. You do not need a lawyer sitting on retainer. You need your money to be legible. Legible means anyone looking at your account can tell what it is in 10 seconds. The benefit arrives electronically, so it carries its label with it. It sits where nothing else is mixed in, and the paper trail is short enough to hand across a desk. That is it. That is the whole defense. And notice what that costs. Nothing. No filing fee, no attorney, no permission from anybody. It is a decision about where the money lands. Clyde did not outsmart the system. He just made himself easy to verify. And there is one more thing worth knowing, because it is the piece people miss most often. Being frozen is not the end of the road. It is the start of a process. There is a way to tell a court, in writing, that the money in that account is exempt, that it is a protected federal benefit, and it cannot be taken. But that claim has a clock on it, and the clock starts running the day the notice goes out, not the day you understand it, which is why the weeks between the notice and the understanding are the expensive weeks, not the freeze itself. Odell lost most of a month in that gap, not fighting, just figuring out what the paper in his hand actually meant. Now here is your checklist. 4 things this week. 1. If your Social Security still comes as a paper check, or you cash it and deposit the cash, change that. Electronic delivery is what carries the label that triggers the automatic protection. Cash does not. 2. Look at what else lands in the account your benefit goes into. A pension, wages, a refund, help from family. Every one of those makes the account harder to defend. 3. Think seriously about keeping your benefit in an account where nothing else arrives. It is not glamorous, it takes one visit, and it is the single difference between 9 days and 5 weeks. And while you are there, ask one plain question. Ask what your bank does when a garnishment order arrives on an account receiving federal benefits. Ask who at that branch handles it. A 5-minute conversation on a normal Tuesday is worth more than a week of phone calls on the worst day. 4. If a notice ever arrives saying your account is restrained, do not assume it is final and do not wait. There is a claim to file and a window to file it in, and the people who lose are almost always the ones who waited. Now let me bring them all back, because these are not just names in a video. Odell, who found out in a checkout line, holding a card that would not work. Winnie, at her kitchen table with a highlighter and a year of statements, proving money she never owed was hers. Clyde, who got the same notice and had it gone in 9 days because his money was easy to read. Not one of them was reckless. Not one of them owed what was coming after them. The only thing that separated the 9 days from the 5 weeks was knowing, in advance, how the protection actually works. Let me leave you with the one thing to remember. Your Social Security is protected. That is real. That is federal law. But that protection is a label, and labels come off in the mixing. The people who lose their money are almost never the people who had no right to keep it. They are the people who could not prove fast enough that it was theirs. That is the whole game. The law already agrees with you. It just needs to be able to see, at a glance, that the money in front of it is yours. So make it easy to prove. Today. While nothing is wrong, I am Kevin. Thanks for watching. Do not forget to check the quiet rules at kevinexplains.shop.